actually. So, without further ado, just as a couple more people drift in, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is scheduled before lunch. She is the fantastic Almira Thunstrom, is that the right pronunciation? So she's the founder of Sci-Fi Lab, and she's also, according to her bio, a gamer mom. So any gamers in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Speak to her about that later, as you've got a soul supporter. But yeah, she's going to talk to us about will the future have periods? So yeah, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here at Geek-Girl for the first time, and in the UK for the first time, and for the first time in 3 years talking to other adults, because I've been a stay-at-home mom. So if there is anything I bring for today, you know, because I've been yelling at a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I also have to apologize for the presentation, because the damn Steve Jobs loves his fonts, and I use a Mac, so when it transferred, I didn't think about it, so I apologize. I will try to run as fast as I can to go through the schedule, so if you have any further questions, you can contact me at Almira Thunstrom at Twitter and the hashtag Health2076 if you have any ideas or questions. So who am I? Originally, I'm a neuroscientist. I was doing my PhD at the Karolinska Institute, where they give out the Nobel Prize. And I took a break, and now I'm working for the National Board of Health and Welfare as a science advisor. And I'm also freelancing at IGN and VR Sweden and VR Geeks as a gamer mom. And I started the Sci-Fi Lab because I was very bored with academia. There are a lot of things you can think, but not a lot of things you can publish. So I created a site where I can think those thoughts. For example, I make videos about what happens after brain transplant surgery. Who am I talking to? The person that had the brain, the person that had the body, or a third person? Things like that. And I also have a co-contributor who's a virologist and also a PhD student, or he just got his PhD, so he's a doctor. But he also, like me, has a bunch of kids, so we took a break from Sci-Fi Lab and are trying to revive it. And I'm reviving it through writing a book called The 127-Year-Old Newborn, and it's about tech in 2076. So once it's done, it will be free to download on our homepage, because we're a non-profit organization. And why am I standing here talking about future health in a room full of women and men who are interested in geek girl topics? Well, in 2013, I gave birth to my first child. And one of the biggest fears I had was being faced with one of these. Now, this is the mild version. The big version has these huge heads that go inside of you and lift the baby's head and rip it out of you. And that made me think how horrible it is to be a woman, how horrible it is to give birth, and why couldn't we have these nanorobotic plasters that we could put down there that would softly expand us during the procedure? Or why couldn't they, instead of coming in every 5 seconds and touching you, putting their hand inside of you just to estimate how open you are, have a sensor glove that tells them accurately, so you don't have to do it every 5 minutes and can do it maybe once or twice during the procedure, making it more comfortable to be a woman. After that, I gave birth to my daughter, and during that pregnancy, I had a lot of health issues, and saw how horribly women are treated in healthcare if they don't describe their symptoms right. So that made me put this in sci-fi perspective and want to write a book looking at how we can solve this. And it also made me realize how strong our bodies are, independently if we have given birth to children or not. The female body is a strong body that goes through a lot, but it's often seen as weak. And that made me wonder why. And one other hobby I have is looking at looking at medical anthropology. And you don't have to go far into medical anthropology to see why the female body is seen as weak, despite being the opposite. Already Hippocrates thought that the female fetus was basically an anomaly of the male fetus. So if a female fetus did not have enough heat and sustenance, it turned into a woman. So the male fetus was the gold standard, and the woman was the anomaly. And even our uteruses, our private parts, were just male penises that had grown outwards. And that's how we were described. This is how the female uterus looked. It was basically a sliced male penis turned inwards. And then you can understand now how it was to be a woman. And this wasn't malicious. Men weren't malicious. This is just that women were often started at a lower point in socioeconomic classes and weren't put into science. So men had to draw from what they believed instead of what they saw. And this is not science, this is my own thought, and to some extent verified by medical anthropology. We started changing this view and viewing the female body more objectively, more accurately, once women started becoming doctors. So now we have scientifically trained women who looked at the female body with its different set of eyes. But are we all good then? Because now we have medical books, we know what the female body looks like, we even know that the X chromosome, so genetically we're a bit more complex than men. The Y chromosome is a little tiny. So that should give us a little advantage in healthcare, right? Well, that's far from the truth still. Why I named this "Do We Have Periods in the Future" is because of Tom Kirkwood, a professor that took fruit flies and postponed their mating period to see if he can prolong their life. So if he let them mate at the end of their life, he could prolong it with about 100%. So instead of living 1 week, 2 weeks, they live 3 to 5. And one of the things he said was that the female period was interesting because it showed that maybe if we could go past it, maybe we could tap into an even longer longevity. So maybe women could live longer. So we need to deal with the most essential part of ourselves to see if we can make ourselves immortal. And men have shown that they can do that just by tapping into education, money, and good health care. So for the first time in history, we have men outliving a group of women. This is from the Office of National Statistics, and we have men from higher managemental and professional statuses outliving all women here in the UK. And that shows us that we don't need to trust biology. We can tweak it to make sure that we live longer. If men can do it, maybe we can improve our conditions, because we do live long, but we do live long with bad health. So men live shorter, but the years we continue past them are not fun. And that's why we need to think a bit like, what have we done for men that we can do for women? And what diseases are women faring worse in, and can technology bridge the gap? And I'm not talking about female-specific diseases such as breast cancer or uterine cancer. I'm talking about diseases that affect men and women equally. And those are in the heart, the cardiovascular, the neurological, and lung cancers. But since I'm trying to speed this up, and I don't want to take all day, I'm just going to talk about hearts, because those are the biggest killer of women, killing more than all cancers combined. And this is the quote that made me want to focus on this. If a woman does not go to the doctor or an emergency room, her treatment is often very different than what a man might receive. We are less likely to give them the life-saving medications that we commonly give to men. And this is from Martha Gulati, an MD, for an interview in Forbes. 8.3 million women will die of heart disease each year. 1/3, so 1 out of 3 of us here will die from a heart disease, whether it's in old age because we need something to die out of, or prematurely in our 40s on our way to preschool, getting our kids and having a heart attack. And because we have differences in plaque distributions, men have more collected plaques, where women have more spreads, we are often misdiagnosed and sent home, and we die more oftenly than men when we do have a problem. And since we only comprise of 24% of participants in all heart studies, there is no way of knowing how the medications or strategies affect us. And this I could just turn around and use for men saying about your mental health, because the numbers are almost the same. So I wanted to see what Marta Gulati meant, and I'm born in former Yugoslavia, Bosnia, and I wanted to see something in that vicinity, because I know that there is a lot of good cardiac healthcare there. And you can see very clearly here that women at all stages of life are more likely to die at a hospital once they come in with a myocardial infarction. And this is going to be a long text, so I don't expect you to have a death by PowerPoint. I'm going to read it because I think it is so important. A significantly lower proportion of women was treated with aspirin, clopidogrel, heparin, and primary precautionous coronary interventions. The in-hospital mortality was significantly higher for women than for men. After adjustment for any confounders, and that's lifestyle, smoking, obesity, women showed an increased risk in in-hospital mortality. Several factors might contribute to the excess in in-hospital case fatality rates. Most notably, disparity in medical treatment played to create crucial role. So we are experiencing extreme health inequality when it comes to our treatment, and mostly because of our symptoms. So can tech help us become better? Help us save lives? Well, there are a lot of initiatives here that are represented in this room. I'm going to talk about iGiant for a quick moment, because it's an initiative, a roundtable initiative in Stanford, where women are from pharma industry, from tech industry, from life science, come together and talk about inventions when it comes to cardiac arrest and respiratory diseases, and how we can save women. So why is it important that women think about other women? That we invent tech that helps other women? I'm not going to, I don't want to bully anyone here, particularly for Kevin, because he's done an amazing job. I love reading patents, particularly since I'm writing a book about future tech. I read a lot of patents. And they have already talked about in the previous panel about VUCA. So here's Kevin, and here is Stacy and Terry. Kevin has made this wonderful contraption that tells us about the health of our cervix, but it has so many whistles and bells. How many women would want an electrode going in between their legs, going outside of their pants, onto a belt with an extra sensor that then doesn't go to their smartphone, but goes to a third device telling them about their period? Well, Stacy and Terry thought, well, a lot of women use moon cups. They just put a sensor in that. And that's where we need women to think about women, because women know that that little tampon string can ruin your day. Imagine having a cable stuck out. Another patent that I saw is for Hexoskin. So we know that our heart rates, that our plaques, that our symptoms are different. If we have smart fabrics, which I think are the future, because women love fashion, most of us like wearing clothes. Most of us have to wear clothes. We're not in the nudist camp. So why not let those clothes tell our doctors how we are feeling or gather data about our health? Or not, why not our jewelry? Because most of us wear jewelry. Or smartwatches. There are millions and millions and thousands of apps and functions that are out there. I'm just going to mention AliveCor because it also allows you to record your symptoms. And it is clinically vetted, and there are doctors who are willing to use it. I tried out calling out for doctors to see, would you take this seriously if your female patient came with this smartwatch and these symptoms? And they said, I don't want a bunch of data. But if she came with those symptoms and I could have this EKG, usually we just have a 24 or 48 or 72 hour EKG, but if we could have a month-long EKG, then it would help me to set a diagnosis. Now we have taken a snippet of what's going on now, but my task is to both get inspired and to inspire the health of 2076. So if we think of that is 6 years from now, 6 years ago, most of the things we have were around, perhaps at a laboratory stage, but not in commercial use. Here we have the first open heart surgery in Dallas. And it doesn't look, if you would color it, it wouldn't look that much different than what we are doing now, except we have a lot less invasive methods. And a lot less invasive methods means implants, wearables, and other form of nanotechnology that will enter our bodies. And for that, I think we're going to have a whole new medical field. So we're going to have Physioneers and Nurseneers. So this is from the TV show Firefly, my absolute favorite. And Physioneer and Nurseneer is something I tried to come up with for a physician that is also an engineer. Because we are going to need them to fix our wearables. And why are they going to need to fix wearables? Because a doctor in the future has to know what a nanoparticle is. Google X, now called Alphabet X, is a life science initiative from Google. And they also want to tackle heart disease because they know that it's also the biggest killer of women. And they want to send nanoparticles that scan the bloodstream and then send data back to a wearable so that we can have perhaps know in advance, by a week, by a month, even by an hour matters, if there's a cardiac arrest going on. And once you've had it, perhaps you want to have it patched. So one of the biggest reasons we die is because our symptoms are not allowing us to get the proper medications, and medications that are suited to our bodies, because many women aren't even included in drug therapy studies in big pharma. So if we had this engineered hybrid cardiac patch that is already under development, that can not only stimulate regeneration in our hearts, but send crucial medication, that would save a lot of lives and also improve the flow of healthcare. And finally, for 2076, since we're kind of running out of time, is the buzzword is going to be graphene. So trust me, in a few years, you're all going to know what graphene is by heart. Because it's a form of carbon, of planar sheets, which are 1 atom thick and look like a honeycomb in 3D. And it has amazing properties that can turn almost anything into a wearable inside your body. For example, we have these nanographenes be used on teeth to monitor bacteria, both that goes on into our bodies and that affects our teeth, and also help with diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is something that is a very high risk factor for myocardial infarction and other heart disease. So if we can make it easier for people not to forget their medication and measure their blood sugars with this electronic skin patch that can detect glucose level through electrochemical sensors and deliver drug through microneedles. we won't need to rely on something, rely on symptoms. Our bodies can be our the doctors, and the doctor's role can be to help advance the sciences instead of focusing on deciphering what's wrong. I don't know if you saw that there is a lot of talk about AI being able to diagnose diseases better than humans. So now imagine if those AIs also had the sensibility to help us recover, to be our internal doctors. Now I talked about periods, and I wonder if we'll ever get rid of them, or if we will have them. And I think that we will be able to decide to whether or not we want to have them. Implantables will be able to govern our health with the touch of a button. For example, Microchips Biotech, an MIT and Bill Gates invested company, will soon deliver a microchip that accurately gives low doses of contraceptives for 16 years. And that is just a small fraction of what we are achieving. Perhaps soon we won't even need hormones. We can have implantables that can govern the lining of our uterus to maybe prevent it from becoming pregnant by not giving us any side effects from hormones. So tech has a lot of potential to save lives, and I think that more people should use it to monitor themselves, but also to try to help contribute with data to science. So I will see you in the future, I hope, and I hope you have gained some insight or clue into SciFi Lab and into Future Tech. Thank you.